Tonight, I'm going to show you how I built my office cabinets with a secret compartment. After more than a year of working from home, I finally decided to upgrade my home office setup. These cabinets are the first video that I'm going to do in a series about my home office upgrade. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can see the next videos in this series too. When I started designing these cabinets, I wanted to include a secret compartment because everybody knows secret compartments are awesome. So I figured out the dimensions and the proportions and modeled it all up in SketchUp so I could get a rough idea of what it was going to look like. Then I went to work. As with many of my furniture designs, I like to make things look sturdy. So this meant adding some width to the sides to match the thickness of the top. This meant I had to essentially build a very narrow box. The two pieces of plywood on either side would be attached to a front and a back piece to make it look like it was a 2-inch thick piece. To do this, I cut my plywood down to size using my circular saw and my table saw. Then I cut a saw curve width down the center of one edge of the plywood. This is how you create a joint called a spline. This same saw curve was then cut into the 2-inch wide front edge board. I then ripped down another board to be the exact width of the saw curve. This is called the spline. This spline does strengthen the joint a bit, especially since I'm gluing into plywood. But more importantly, it helps keep your pieces aligned during the glue up. At the other end of these two pieces of plywood, I glued a spacer just to keep the two sides parallel. This completes my box. I then had to build this for the other side and then another set since I was building two cabinets. The two cabinet sides are connected with cross pieces that are screwed to the other side with pocket screws. In order to keep the secret compartment hidden, I decided to add a bottom to my cabinet, which was cut out of 3/4 inch plywood and pocket screwed to the sides of the cabinet. For the top, I started with a 3-inch thick slab of live edge black walnut. Using my router sled, I flattened the slab on one side, then flipped it over and flattened the other side. If you're interested in some tips and tricks when it comes to using a router sled, I actually have another video that explains that. When it was all flattened and smooth, the final thickness was about 1 7/8 inches. I cut this slab in half so I could use it on the top of both cabinets. I then took my sander and power carver and cleaned up the edge so there weren't any loose pieces. I also used some of my black Starbond CA glue and filled in the open knots before sanding it to make a smooth tabletop. To build the drawer boxes, I used some pre-finished maple plywood drawer sides. This material is designed to be used for drawer boxes and only needs to have a dado routed for the drawer bottom to sit in. I also decided to pull out my dovetail jig and make the joinery with router cut dovetails. I think dovetails are super cool looking and it's always fun to see a dovetail joint come together. After routing the dado for the drawer bottom, I had to cut out a notch in the back of each drawer as well as a partial hole to fit the undermount drawer slide. If you've ever used this type of slide, cutting this notch in the hole is pretty standard. Once the sides and the base plywood were all cut to size, I glued up each drawer using glue as carefully as I could in just the areas where the joint was. The drawer fronts were all made with a shaker style, rail and style router bit set. Try saying that 10 times fast. If you haven't seen these before, it's a matching set of router bits that's used to make 5-piece doors or drawer fronts. The flat panel in the center was 1/2-inch plywood, which I routed a groove in around the edges so it would sit almost flush with the back. I prefer doing that instead of using 1/4 inch plywood because it gives you a bit more thickness to screw your drawer handles to. Now, as some of you have seen, I posted a picture on Instagram of my mistake on calculating the total height of the drawers. I realized too late that the bottom drawer was actually 1 inch too large. Yo! I was able to salvage the floating center panel, but the sides all had to be remade. Now you can all learn from my mistake. You're welcome. Now you may be wondering when that secret compartment is going to come in. Well, here we are. The idea for this secret compartment was to have a shallow tray that somehow would tuck up underneath the skirt of the cabinet and not be visible or even suspected when looking at it from the front. Secret compartments in furniture used to be a lot more common before people trusted banks with their valuables. But I think there's still a practical as well as coolness factor when secret compartments are built into furniture. I built the tray to be 1.5 inches tall so it would fit just under the lower skirt. Since it was so shallow, I didn't use dovetails and just did a simple rabbet joint on the corners. In order to get the back of the tray to lift up once it was pushed in all the way, I built a ramp at the back with a ledge at the top. This way, the back of the tray slides up and rests up high. The front of this tray is then held up with rare earth magnets which I glued onto the tray edge, which then connected to washers glued up inside the base. This locks the entire tray up and makes it invisible even if you lay on the floor and look at the cabinet. I also drilled a hole in the bottom of the tray to pull it down and a hole in the front to pull it out. Once everything was sanded smooth, I laid out the pieces for painting. Using my cheap HVLP spray gun and some good paint, I was actually able to get a really awesome finish. In addition to using good paint, the key to this is to sand with 320 grit sandpaper after you do your first coat of paint. And then after any other subsequent coats, if you feel any rough spots, go back over and hit it with some 320 before painting it again. The live edge walnut tops were finished with Osmo Pollux oil, which makes the wood figure just pop on this walnut. Now, a company called True Position Tools sent me their cabinet hardware jig, which I agreed to try out on this project. It comes with a main jig and an extension bar, which you really need to do drawer handle. You essentially set your handle spacing, which was 96 millimeters for mine, take half your drawer width and set the side stop, and then determine how far you want your handles from the top and set the top stop. Then you drill the holes and you're ready to go. This thing is super simple, intuitive, and very well made. The only thing plastic on it is the case to carry it in. If you're doing a lot of cabinet doors or drawers, this comes in super handy, and I have a link below in the description. I installed undermount drawer slides on these because I love how they're hidden, and you only see the drawer boxes when you open a drawer. Now, aligning the drawer fronts can be a challenge, but if you cut some shims and space them out evenly, you can then either put some temporary screws through the front drawer handle holes, or you can just reach in from the top and secure each drawer front directly. These drawer slides from Bloom also have a lateral movement adjustment, so any final tweaking can be done once everything is installed. Finally, I attached the top using 3 screws into the frame along the back. This anchors the back edge, so any wood expansion, which always will happen across the grain, will happen along the front edge. On either side in the front, I used some expansion brackets to account for that movement. These cabinets have a lot of weight in the back and the center, which makes me not concerned at all about them tipping over when the drawers are pulled out. I'm extremely happy with how these turned out, and I'm glad I made 2. Now tell me in the comments if you think we need more secret compartments in the world, or maybe we already have secret compartments, we just don't know about them because they're secret. Now go build something and I'll catch you on my next video.